The Podcast Superfriends. 5 podcast pros talking tech, promotion, marketing, ideas, and strategy.
The band is back together. All 5 of us, once again, this is the May edition of the Podcast Superfriends. As we go around and introduce ourselves, we'll start in Fort Worth.
Hello, I am Johnny Podcasts. Excited to be back with everybody.
Hey there, everybody. My name's Catherine O'Brien in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. What a pleasure to be with the Podcast Superfriends.
Hi, it's David Yaz, pod617.com up here in Boston, the Boston Podcast Network. In Pod We Trust, man.
John Gay, Jag Podcast Productions, outside Detroit, Michigan.
All right, we're all together again, and we sort of put it out to tender. What should we talk about? And it turned out that have all been thinking about a lot of different things. So I thought we would put this together in an episode called Not So Random Questions. So we're just going to pop them up on the screen, and we'll just go around as they pop up here. I've ordered them, so they're not really, again, they're not so random, right?
Did you say put them on Tinder, Matt, or did you say something else?
No, I said I put them. I don't remember what I said. Totally editing that out. I thought this question from Johnny was very good. And what are the best ways to audience funnel and find out who is listening?
And I didn't pose this question because I feel like I know all the answers. I'm genuinely asking this. I genuinely want to know this because I feel like over the years what we've done is like the big one that we always put out is the audience survey. And it's like, okay, well, you need people to actually participate in that. And if you want to know who's listening, you want really detailed responses. And so now you're asking your listeners, hey, not only do I want you to take the survey, it's going to be like 25 questions. And it's just, I don't know if that's the greatest barometer to determine who's, because what a lot of my clients come to me with is they go, we don't really necessarily care so much about having 100,000 downloads, but I need to know that it's like the right people are finding the show.
Yeah. So I had this from the advertiser side. I had somebody say, listen, you've got a podcast about broadcast and podcasting. So, for my product, I really only need 12 people in North America, the right 12 people, leaders in this particular industry to listen to your podcast in order for, to convert a sale. So how can you prove to me that any of those 12 particular VPs or presidents or people who are buyers are listening to your show? Oh, you want me to answer that?
Yeah. Or call on someone.
Yeah. So who wants to give that a try?
Well, I'll give it a try. So in the words of Albert Einstein, not everything that counts can be counted. So it gets to the kind of heart of what we're talking about here is, if not sheer download numbers, then what? And to offer an answer that unfortunately is maybe a non-answer is, I think you got to ferret that out anecdotally. A client survey, listener survey can be great, but like Johnny said, if it becomes a chore, who are the people that are going to be answering the bell, right? So I think you can judge by a combination of, now there are some demographic information that Spotify does, Apple does, but it's probably, and some other independent sources, but it's probably not going to satisfy really what you want. It's just a tricky thing. So I think you develop it through developing relationships with your listeners and getting meaningful, emails. Give out an email address every episode, and you at least get a degree. And once your audience trusts you, then you will start to hear both constructive criticism and huzzahs. So yeah. So those are my thoughts.
Yeah, I think email list is probably the best way because, and then, to revive my slaughtered audience survey idea, I think that I think the audience survey is sort of the long game. So it's something that's always in the show notes. You call it out occasionally, but it's always something that's there. And it's just sort of a running list that you're building up over the course of like a year. I don't think it's something that you can totally build out over the course of maybe like a month or 2 months, maybe 1 to 2 years. That's how you're building that audience survey out. But yeah, I think email collection This one sounds kind of cheesy, but audio, like a giveaway to get people to give you their emails, or like what David said originally, is giving out your email as the host and being like, reach out to me, talk to me, tell me what you want to hear, like DM us here on this social platform. And that way you're at least finding out who the super duper fans are on the show.
Or yeah, and in addition to the I like the giveaway because you do kind of need some incentive to get them to speak. So it could also be a shout out on the podcast.
Yeah.
Or, you know, if you're doing a travel podcast, you could say, tell us the favorite place you ever visited, and we'll give you a shout out on the pod if you take a few minutes to do our survey.
I have a client that does a fairly detailed survey every year, and she does an Amazon gift card. She'll draw one random survey respondent and give them an Amazon gift card. So there's a little bit of a carrot there. I also think that, you know, the native apps that let me first back off. Your host will give you analytics on your on where your people are, but Apple and Spotify and YouTube have pretty detailed information about their users. I wouldn't gloss over that too. There's definitely information to be gleaned from going into your Spotify for Creators platform, your Apple Podcast Connect, your YouTube Studio. There's definitely data there that shouldn't be overlooked.
And to just step off on that, Jag, I think that too, this is an area where social media can be very helpful if you're doing the kinds of promotion that you need to do to post about your episodes. Hopefully you're getting people engaging with you on social media. And then that is where you can get the more detailed who, what, where, what are their interests. And especially we all know that Meta has gotten so good at being able to identify the likes of the people that are clicking on your ad or even just merely hovering over your post, and using that information, I think, is really helpful as well. And really there too, it's cheap. You could very easily just for $50 get to know a little bit more about who's engaging with you on social media.
Another way, I asked our buddy ChatGPT while we were talking. I just asked, I need to know
the real source.
I need to know who is listening to my podcast. What do I do? And gave a bunch of options, a lot of the stuff that we already talked about, surveys, interacting with the audience, etc. But the one that I found really interesting that I think it doesn't actually require you to ask of anything from anybody is you see it says you use all of the data that you have to determine what episodes are performing the best, completion rates, which episodes are getting the most downloads and the most listens, the most comments and the most interactions on social media. From there, that gives you much more of a picture of, okay, these are the type of people based on this is getting the most reaction, this type of content. Therefore, I can make the assumption that these are the type of people that are listening.
That's a great point. And, you know, you will see patterns. You know, if you do, I have a couple of podcasts where they'll do a regular episode and then alternate with like a mini episode. And right away, you can notice which one does better. It's probably not going to be the mini episode because the listeners probably want the real, quote unquote, the real thing. But by topic, by the type of guest you have, you will notice patterns.
So what we've spoken about right now, we could lead into one of the next two questions that was provided. I'm going to choose this one right here. And so how does one make sense of analytics and measure success?
Matt, you have a number, right? You're our numbers guy.
That's right.
Completion rates, I feel like, is the one that you hit on a lot. But what is like the app, like, because I just got a question about this today. One of the shows started using AI to put together sort of weekly analytics deliveries. And one of the hosts called out, they said, the completion rate of each episode seems low.
What was the number? Average?
Like 35 or 40.
Low.
Okay.
That's low. So either the show is too long,
okay,
or it's too boring, or you're having trouble getting into the show to keep people listening.
Okay.
So probably the first 5 minutes of the show needs to be examined. So play the rodeo game and listen to it and see when you would jump off as a listener, or give it to someone else and see how long it would take before they bail on the show.
Yeah.
A nice number is about 80%. That's a really good number.
That's a really good number. Yeah.
That's a good number. 75, 80% would be a great target to get to.
I mean, isn't one of the big selling points of podcasts in general is that people will last, like 50% was not unheard of, but it is for other types of media presentations.
Yeah, more engagement.
Yeah.
I should clarify though that that's a podcast listening number target. I think on YouTube the numbers are going to be a little bit lower because there's more
Lower,
visual
yeah.
distractions out there, and people tire of watching things just a little bit faster. That's just human nature.
Yeah.
But here's like a would you rather? Would you rather have 1,000 people listen to 30% of your show, or 100 people listen to 100% of your show?
100%.
There you go.
Yeah.
And I think, Johnny, to your point earlier, you and I have talked before about just noticing how podcasters are the preamble is starting to be dropped from people's podcast routines, that so many more big podcasts are just getting right to the good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
There's none of the intro, none of the teaser, none of that. We're getting to the good stuff right as soon as we can. And I think that probably that trend is leaning towards what you're experiencing here, is that people want it. They don't want to have all the build up. They want to get to the good stuff as soon as they can.
Yeah.
I think once you dive into consumption metrics, downloads look pretty boring after that.
Yeah. Yeah.
What about, this is a question I genuinely don't know the answer to. On Apple Podcast, there's a statistic for plays. And I'd love to know how that differs than downloads.
Isn't that like they played it for with at least 30 seconds?
Is that what that means?
Yes.
Well, because the number on
Go ahead.
you go, Catherine. No.
I was interrupting.
Okay, so I'm looking at a podcast I have, and on my it's on Podbean. That's the host, and it'll show something like 500 downloads or so. But on Apple Podcasts, it'll show 1,300 plays. And so, anyone know what that's all about?
Yeah, I think I might be able to decipher that. And I'm only doing it by going into Apple right now and reading it to you. That's the number of plays on unique devices where the play duration is greater than 0 seconds. So somebody went in and touched it, and that was it.
You beat me to it, Matt. I was jumping in there to look also.
Oh, good.
Okay, petition to rename this episode "Questions We Don't Have the Answers."
Well, that's
I was going to write that down because it's twice that it's come up. Absolutely.
I was glad Johnny came clean, because a couple of questions I submitted were questions that I wanted the answer to, but don't necessarily have.
Are we done with this one, by the way? Any other metrics that
One quick tangent here, since we're in the Apple ecosystem, to dovetail off what Dave asked. Engaged listeners is a good metric here. The number of unique devices that played at least 20 minutes or 40% of an episode in a single session. So if they got to 20 minutes or 40% of an episode, they are an engaged listener. That is a better metric to look at than people who hit the play button.
That's an excellent point.
I would go along with that. But okay, I'm looking at an episode of one of my podcasts. It's got only 86 engaged listeners. It's got more than 1,300 plays. The average consumption is 92%.
Huh.
So if 13 people clicked on it and 92% of them, you would think the engaged listeners would be a lot higher.
It does say engaged listeners in a single session. So unless the numbers are wonky and Apple is putting the wool over our eyes yet again, perhaps they are consuming over multiple sessions is the only thing I can come up with off the top of my head, Dave.
Oh, interesting.
I mean, how do you factor into that? Because if you play it into the average, because I'm looking at these numbers of the show that I mentioned, and the highest one on Apple Analytics is 70% is the highest average consumption for this slate of episodes since January. It's all like 47, 51, 55, 61, 70, 54. All of these episodes are about 50 to an hour and 15 minutes long. If the average commute is like 35 minutes,
there you go.
Does that factor in? Like, how do we know that they're not listening to the first half on the way to work, listening to a little bit at work, and then finishing it up on the way home?
Did someone read the definition for engaged listeners on Apple yet?
Yeah.
Jag just did.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Pausing or stopping an episode does not count as starting a new session.
Oh, interesting.
So that answers the question right there.
Mm-hmm.
But that's for the engaged listener. That doesn't necessarily count for average consumption.
Jag, that's an excellent point about unique listeners. If you have the ability to find out what the unique listeners are, take a look. I've seen some people go, I had 500 downloads yesterday. Yes, you have 500 episodes of your show and one person downloaded it somewhere else on the planet. right? So that's one unique listener and 500 downloads. Many ways to count.
Oh, is that because would that be a thing that occurs? In other words, if you discover a podcast and then you subscribe to it and you have your automatic downloads on, is that what happens?
I think you can do that.
Yeah. So Apple, that used to be the way iTunes worked back in 2018. And so you'd wake up one morning and have all these wonky numbers. I know Apple's gotten a grip on that. I think if you hit, follow, it will download just the last 2 episodes if you agree to it. I think most apps have it under control now, but it's still possible. I still see people coming in and downloading entire catalogs.
I still see unusual spikes that I think that this is too good to be true. It's not like 300 random people just discovered the podcast,
Yeah, I didn't want to get into it, but good morning, Vietnam. I'm finding the whole network has Vietnam is now the number 3 country for downloads across the entire network. I don't know what's going on if it's VPN. I'm not going to ask the question because I don't even know who could possibly answer it. So we'll just move on, right? And I think, David, you threw this one in. What devices are best for listener feedback?
I did. So I suppose I have to try to answer it.
You don't have to answer it, but you can ask it why did you want this answered?
Well, we've already covered a little bit of it, but it's not only is listener feedback a good way of learning about your audience, but it's a great way of keeping you motivated to do your podcast because if you've ever launched a podcast and then oftentimes I'll do one and I'll create an email saying, if you have questions for Attorney Jones here, please email us at whatever. And then you try to create a segment, which is, ask the host this. And so, and I'm going by my old radio friends. I don't know if this ever happened, but if you don't get any, you make up a couple to kind of
Oh, God, yes.
Yes. Okay. So, and then it can be discouraging when you don't get any, but then you start to get them. And that's when, it lends texture to the show. So that's, I think and creating that loop, it's more than just getting emails and giving a little feedback, creating a loop where you can shout out listeners and it sort of perpetuates itself. People will hear that other listeners are getting shouted out and they'll be like, oh, well, maybe I'll make a comment. Maybe they'll mention me on the podcast. So, but I don't know if anyone has had success with other things like contests, like surveys, like, you're doing a movie podcast and you want to count down the top 10 action movies of all time according to your listeners. That's a good way of doing it. That's kind of a fun way to inject something into the pod. But if anyone has other devices, I'd love to hear them.
The only ones I've done personally are the surveys, and with those were something that we just left kind of in the show notes for every episode for, like I said earlier, like over the course of like a year or 2 years. And they start to build up over time if you're calling them out often enough, and they give you really, really great data. Feedback, there were questions in there about like, what do you want to hear more of? What do you want to hear less of? Those answers weren't so valuable, I think, as much as it was about getting more data on who the listener was.
I have 2 examples. One is I had a client who was using the podcast for lead generation or to build an email list. So we created a lead magnet that was exclusive to the podcast. So that was an easy way. We've got a little simple, most of the email platforms you can do a simple landing page. They give you your email, they get the checklist. I will say this. Very simple lead magnet can be very effective. So, you're trying to give something directly to your target audience, something that that they will appreciate, even if it's just something simple like a reading list, like a top books you recommend, whatever. It can be a very simple lead magnet, and just tracking how many people opt in and give you the email. That is always a great way to do it. Again, I've had clients be very successful at that, especially since we all know that people still buy from email. That is a great way to do if you're in any kind of sales. The email list is going to be a big boon for you. And then the other one is, I know I've shared this on the podcast Super Friends before, is that we kind of already discussed it, is there's a way in the show notes of one of my clients to email the host. And she gets an email at least once a week from people giving feedback or, saying some things that they appreciate about the show or having a question. And that has been really just a very happy surprise that so many people would be willing to move their bodies and do something to connect with the host. So I always say, like, if you have any kind of call to action, make sure that you give them a pathway to actually do the thing that you're wanting them to do.
I have a little bit of a grip on my community. There's 1,000 people on my email list. If I know that I'm going to be interviewing, I will reach out to people on the list I know who know this particular guest, and I will send them a personal email to say, hey, I've got so-and-so coming up on the show. I'm recording it Friday. Would you be able to submit a question? And
that's great.
Right. So and I could, by the way, send it out to 1,000 people. 950 are not going to care, but those 50 people who I think really will care are going to come back with either a question that they write or one that they record. And if they write it, I'll say, oh, by the way, can you record this? And you don't have to have the audio recorded before the show. I could just ask the question. I can put the audio in later. So it's something that you really can manufacture. I look at something like, I can't remember what it's called, SpeakPipe. And a lot of websites will have a microphone on the side where people can ask a question, but they don't know who's coming up on the show. They don't know what you're talking about next. They maybe, you can get them to, comment on last week's show, but did they get to the end of the show? And, I think you really need to it's kind of like this thing. If you've got to browbeat people into, coerce them into doing it by asking them personally. I know that's a stretch and a long way, but it works.
Look,
and how personal. That's so cool. I think that's a great idea.
And the call out of like 950 people aren't going to care, but those 50 that do care, like those are the people you want to hear from anyways. It all really comes back to like who actually really loves listening to the show. And then there are also those people that they're just not going to engage. They just enjoy listening to the podcast. And that's as far as the extent of as the relationship goes. I know with the podcast that I listen to, I don't respond to any call to actions. I just listen to the podcast because I'm getting my free content and that's what I'm there for. And that's that.
Has anybody used the text feature through Buzzsprout?
No. And immediately upon hearing that, I would advise people not to do that because we've all gotten spam texts over the years. And I don't know a single person that likes getting those.
All right. Or you can text the host.
Yeah, it's the other way, Johnny. They text you, not you text them.
Okay. Then I rescind my comment.
That was an instant reaction. That was Pavlovian.
Oh, especially when like election time comes around, like you're just getting text on and on.
I get texts from 4 states I don't live in anymore about local elections.
Well, what's really fun is responding to them with the exact opposite of what they want to hear, and they just opt you out for you. They just go, you've been unsubscribed from this list. I go, what? I thought we were starting a dialogue. Come on.
Jag, the Louisiana ones, you can just forward them to Catherine.
Oh, thank you.
I could, yes.
This is why you don't give out your number.
I think this one goes next. This one also came from David. And if I have 0 sponsors, should I still be using DAI for promos or anything else?
Only if the content is good. Don't do it to check the box.
Well, give us an example.
Something that your audience cares about. Something coming up on the show, not just... drop it in the middle. Hey, if you're enjoying the show, you should follow and subscribe and send me an email. Something compelling, something that your audience is really going to care about, or like an announcement you've got coming up, a big guest you've got coming up.
I think if it's one call to action, I think that's what you should use it for. If you're not already doing it like organically within the show, making that call to action, which I don't think a lot of podcasts do, at least the ones that I listen to, they're not making that organic. Hey, make sure you're subscribed on YouTube. Make sure you follow the show, whatever the ask is. I think you can do that one ask and put it in there because one of the things I see on YouTube a lot when I'm watching videos and trying to see what, they're doing is a really common theme that I hear is they will drop something in, and with video, it's easier because they can just add that in as they're editing the episode. is, hey, by the way, our statistics show us that 70% of people are just watching the video and they're not subscribing. All you have to do is press that little subscribe button, and it is free. It takes no effort, and it would really, really help me and help other people find this video. And then they go right back to the video. I think having that one ask, if you're asking, like, subscribe, comment, send me an email, yada, 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 like the 7 asks, and it's like, you're killing me here.
Text
The
me.
one is text me. The one ask I think is fine. I think everyone should utilize DAI for that reason, if no other.
Yeah, and it's good to harken back to some of the other devices we've already been talking about. It's great for that if you are like, you've got some gimmick, like we decided on our podcast we're going to decide what is the greatest candy bar ever, and we need you guys to vote, right? So something like that is at least different, and hopefully people get a kick out of it, depending upon what your podcast is about. I don't know if the podcast is about candy or whatever, but it's powerful to be able to use DAI to drop that in, because then they'll hear it. And also, once your candy bar survey is over, you can just remove it, of course. So I think that's a decent example of it.
So we're going to roll back a question or two, because one of the ways I use DAI is also as a device with listener feedback. So a number of people went onto my LinkedIn and they made comments. They said nice things about me. They shared a post, all that stuff. I thank them in my show using DAI. Hey, just before we start the show, I want to thank all these people. And I listed them all by name for helping me out with this post, for supporting, for, reposting and sharing. And that's going to run for, I guess, 2 weeks on the show. So I'm communicating with people. Other people are going to hear it and know that I'm amiable to communicating and feedback. And DAI is actually one of the better devices for listener feedback. Hey, if somebody sends you $5, thank them in the DAI. If somebody, even just so much as just likes your post, what if they hear their name or somebody else says, hey, I heard you on this podcast. It's all part of community building.
I've heard people do that with their the platform is blank, Patreon. Part of the tiers is, if you're paying $15 for the highest tier per month, you will be listed in the show as an executive producer, and they'll put your name in the show notes or your username or whatever. And it's a fun way to, make people feel like they're part of it.
Other uses for DAI that we have not talked about. I would actually say DAI, by the way, I would call it Dynamic Audio Insertion. And if you think of it that way, you don't need to have ads and sponsors in there.
True.
I guess promo would be the other one. Like, we have an amazing guest coming up next week. It's going to be so-and-so, or a brand new episode just dropped yesterday featuring so-and-so. Please go check it out. Getting people to go from one episode to the next.
It occurs to me, Matt, I think I'm repeating what you just said, maybe slightly different, but it could be pretty powerful to, you go to your Facebook page, you pick 3 comments that just hit that week, or your LinkedIn page, or wherever you're gathering listener feedback, and you record a 60-second thing. Just, hey, some great people chimed in this week. It's, Sandy from Oklahoma had this to say about the recent whatever. And that's kind of cool, because when we do listener feedback on other podcasts and it's part of the podcast episode, I wonder whether we might lose some people. I think it's nice to do when people hear it, but you're not talking about them, so maybe it's a little bit of a different change of pace for you to hear it as a break in the show. So I like that idea.
People respond to rewards. The people like people. They like to hear you shouting out. And I think that leans into a lot of the things that people like podcasts for is, Matt is not some untouchable out there guy. He's, responding to posts on LinkedIn. He's seeing what people are doing with the podcast. He's not shouting into the void. All of those things are relational and connection building. I think that's all really good.
Promo swaps. I know promo swaps they can be tough to manage, but if somebody's got a show like yours, you give them your promo, they give you theirs, run them, and share your audience.
That's a great way to use it, for sure.
Yeah,
that's cool.
David, what's the name of your show again?
You mean my music?
Supposed to come up organically.
I was going to come up with a lead in there.
I think the music podcast you're talking about is called
Past Tens, a top 10 time machine.
I didn't bring it up. You guys did. Keep inventing other podcasts that don't exist, like movies and candy.
So if you're listening to this and you have a music podcast, reach out to David, share your promos, swap the promos, and promote each other, would you?
It's a great idea.
All
And
right.
yeah, please do. David@pod617.com.
This one is submitted by Johnny, I think. Some ways using AI to help, not do everything. Make your thumbnails as Apple Podcast rolls out videos.
Yeah, so Spotify for video is already out. And if you're not familiar with that already, definitely consider it. But it's coming to Apple as well. And I have all my shows on Megaphone. When you upload a video podcast, it offers you an option to put up a video thumbnail as well, which is the same as YouTube. So if you're already making the thumbnail, if you're already doing the video, you might as well have it on YouTube, might as well have it on Spotify. The thumbnail is more important for YouTube, but it's good to have on your video for Spotify as well, just to keep the continuity, just keep everything on brand. Everything is the same across all platforms. With that being said, it is really hard to add that to your production list. Creating great thumbnails is probably one of the hardest things to do. How do I make something that is clickable, that is not like clickbait-y? It's in line with our brand, but it gets people excited. It gets someone who's randomly scrolling by to click on it. And then, okay, now I got to hire an artist. There are people that create thumbnails. Do I want to learn Photoshop? Do I want to use Canva? AI is an amazing tool for it. However, it is very easy to spot AI created things right now. I'm sure that'll change in 3 months and it'll all be indistinguishable and all 5 of us will be out of a job. But use AI to help you. So for a real life example that I'm using is on one of the shows that I work on, I had ChatGPT creating the hosts as characters because all the hosts were not using 4K cameras to be able to pull great thumbnails. And I didn't want to use their business website headshots every single time. So it's exactly the same. Every single time you look at a video, it's the exact same picture. So we need to use use AI to create characters that are like animated a little bit to give a little bit of life. Or what is really nice is you can use AI to clean up these screenshots of somebody from the video that you've recorded and you've produced. So like if you took a screenshot of all 5 of us, you can upload it to ChatGPT or Claude or whatever, and you say, clean up everybody's photos, make it look really photorealistic, or add little filters, make it look like a comic book drawing, a pencil sketch, very artistic. There's a gazillion different routes you can go to. You're using AI now to help make something that you have better. You're not using AI to create it for you. And I think there's a really important difference there to where it kind of one side is lazy, the other side is taking the extra effort to try and get that click from somebody.
Canva Premium has a remove background feature that I've used a lot. I'll take a headshot or I'll take a screenshot of video and remove the background, and then you can do all kinds of funky things with it.
Yeah, the background creator the background remover is great in Photoshop as well. There's a ton of great tools out there. I think the most important thing for what the average person is doing it for is the background removal, because you don't want just this back there. You need to make something else, not their office. The other one is cleaning up the image. And what I would recommend to a lot of people is called Remini, REMINI. It takes basically a screen grab of any picture, and it cleans it up, and it's beautiful. And I think I've sent it to everyone here in this group. It's $10 a week. I don't know why they charge by the week, but so that comes out to like $40 a month. Unlimited usage. I use it every single day on every thumbnail that I make. It's incredible.
Really?
REMINI.
Like the actress Leah Remini.
Yeah. I don't know who that is, but yes.
Ugh.
Of course you don't, because you're too young.
Where's she from? The 1700s?
She's from the
King of Queens, right, Jabe?
The King of Queens and My Scientology Story by Leah Remini, which is a very good documentary. By the way, I do that. Sometimes I use ChatGPT. Sometimes I use Grok, Elon's AI agent there. And for example, like I have a podcast. The hosts are 3 women, and the name of the episode was like, "Can one bad apple spoil the tree?" And so I took a photo of them in my studio and punched it through AI, and I get an image of them all holding an apple and kind of looking quizzically at the apple. and with appropriate headline added and all that. So yes, it's AI slop, but I think viewers, I think, are a lot more accepting of like an image like that, dressed up with the headline and everything for a YouTube thumbnail than they are for something like a moving video. I think sometimes we're getting sick to our stomachs of seeing a video and going, oh, wait a minute, this is AI. But for that purpose, I think that's part and part of what you're saying, Johnny, is it works.
Yeah. Can you use AI to just elevate this? Can you make it 10% better than what it was before when I'm just using it? And then one last thing, Catherine, before you jump in, is the thumbnail text is critical too. That has to be different than the title of whatever your video is. I think a lot of things a mistake that a lot of people will make is that the text on the thumbnail is the exact same as the title of your YouTube video or the title of your episode. It's got to be something different.
Why?
It's got because you can see them right there. Like I can already read what's on the thumbnail and I can read the title right below it. So I don't want to see that duplicate. What is that extra hook of a sentence somebody said or something outlandish or something that just makes you go, whoa, what? Click.
Yeah.
Good tip.
It's a great tip.
So I went down a little bit of a YouTube rabbit hole. And to your point, David, one of the things the person that I was listening to was saying is that they don't like it, but when they make the shocked face, like some sort of gasping big eye, they get more clicks for their video. And I think that all of us I've seen exactly what he's describing, is that if they look some sort of like extra very big emotional response, that is what is getting people to click the video. And there's a part of it where I want to rebel from that because
I do too.
I don't like it, but that is what people are clicking to get to the video. So do we set aside our personal feelings and just do what works? Maybe the answer is yes to that. And I forgot the second point, but that was really it, is that that's what it was. He was also saying, and this is not, I've heard this from several YouTube creators. So these are people who are YouTubers. They don't make the video until they know what the thumbnail is going to look like and they know what the title is going to look like, because that is a refining process. That is crystallizing it. It doesn't matter to put all their effort and their time and their hopes and dreams into a video if they know people aren't going to click it. So they actually start with the thumbnail and the title first, because they know that's going to give them the direction to actually make the video. And I think actually podcasters could learn something from that experience.
Wait, so to make, when you say video, you mean the actual episode of the podcast?
It sounds like it's YouTubers, not necessarily podcasters.
So I'm saying podcasters should take a page out of some YouTubers' book, because there's plenty of room for podcasters to be successful on YouTube. And what they're saying is that the of paramount importance is the thumbnail and the title. And I said, I know this because I went to the Johnny Podcast School of Podcast Superfriends. Yeah, I mean, this is not the first time we're hearing this, but some YouTubers, they won't even start to make their video until they have those two assets locked, because they know everything flows from that. That's really the point there.
I suggest that we focus on making excellent podcasts. I know you're not suggesting otherwise, Catherine, but come up with a great product, a great episode, video and audio, and then we can sacrifice some of our ideals to sell out for the thumbnail, to make the thumbnail really.
And you don't have to, go, okay, well, I'm starting my podcast on YouTube. I need to do exactly what Mr. Beast is doing, or any of the other big YouTubers. Look at the big look at the big podcasts on YouTube. What are they doing? What do their thumbnails look like? What do their titles look like? What do their shorts look like? And go from there.
One thing that caught my attention that Catherine said a moment ago is that gasped look. That might get you some clicks. That might piss off your guests if they see the thumbnail themselves, like,
or your host. If you're in the producer's chair, that's the thought that came to mind. That's the thought that came to my mind when Catherine said that, because it's true. But also, like, if the host that you're working with is trusting you to put all this together for them, and you're making them, I feel stupid looking at this. Like, I feel like a jerk seeing myself making that face. I always opt for the smile or the laugh. That's what I always opt for them
What kind of
looking
circus
happy.
freak did you make me into?
Yeah, exactly. And then that comes with the clickbaity titling, like pissing off your guest. Like this guy said something. Like it's just, you have to be really careful with that kind of stuff.
You will be shocked.
And then
And
like
what they said.
Photoshop in an electrical outlet and have them sticking their finger in it.
Yeah.
Has-
Guest embarrasses themselves on my podcast.
Has anybody used the A/B testing feature for the
Yes.
thumbnails?
Yes.
What's-
It's fine. So I did it where the hosts have name and face recognition, but the guests don't. And so thumbnail A was everybody on the thumbnail, hosts and guests. Thumbnail B was just the hosts. People clicked on the one with the hosts. Because I don't know who these people are. So maybe it was a titling error on my end. Maybe my title could have been better, or how I pitched the thumbnail could have been cooler and better and more fun and more clickable. But the data showed that we the audience liked seeing these people, so we're clicking on this.
Tangentially from one of the panels of Podcast Movement last summer was when you're talking about SEO for your podcast episode titles, is if you don't have a famous guest, don't necessarily use their name in the title.
Mm-hmm.
Also, people are coming to your show for you. They're probably not coming for the guest. And that includes famous guests too.
This show in particular is not a guest-driven show. This is a host-driven show. The hosts that are on there, they're the ones that carry the majority of the audience. They don't always have guests on.
You can also do A/B testing on the actual titles too. That is
yes.
something that you have available to you. And I have started for one of my clients to use I don't have enough data to report yet, but the quizzes that you can have a little quiz for on YouTube, on the YouTube videos, for just a quick question for the audience.
Have you had any anecdotal data on that, Catherine? That's looked good? Or?
I just have started doing it, just rolling it out. So not enough to tell yet.
Jag, you had a post on LinkedIn earlier this week, and this is about getting to know the people who are doing your videos.
Yeah, so the TLDR version of it is I have a new podcast client, wonderful client. She wanted to do her first episode interview in person, and she went to a local podcast studio. And she actually they did record in Riverside from the studio. So I'm like, great, just I'll log into your account, I'll grab the files, and the dimensions were all off. They weren't 1920 by 1080. They weren't 1280 by 720. They were just oddly square dimensions. So I had to create backgrounds and get a little creative in both a 2-shot and a 1-shot of each participant in the show. And also they were sitting at a table together. And I think it was I had to crop it a little bit differently to get the flow going a little bit better. And my point in the LinkedIn post was, it's not TLDR at this point, but my point in the LinkedIn post was vet your podcast studio, because if you Google podcast studios near me, anybody with $1,000 can put together the equipment for a studio. Say, hey, can you show me some finished products you created for clients, whether that's audio or video or both? Just because you've set up a studio does not mean that you know exactly how a podcast should look and sound. I have not seen this, but I'd imagine there's a podcast studio somewhere with Blue Yeti microphones. You never know what you're going to get. So please do a little bit of research aside from what's the easiest studio near me with the
what's the cheapest? The cheapest option?
And where I got blowback on the post was I said, I'd rather you do it virtually in Riverside than use a bad studio. And some pushback I got was, are you kidding? You need to use a studio and have a high-end podcast. Well, sure, if you got a great studio and you've got the resources to pay for and you've got a team for production, great. But for John Q. podcaster who might be on a limited budget, in a lot of cases, it might be better to just record it with a high-quality platform like Riverside as opposed to spending the money on studio time.
I really did not understand some of the responses you were getting to that. You were totally reasonable, and people took it. It really seemed like that triggered a lot of people's personal pet issues about podcasting. It was very, very weird to me.
I think you might have seen more of the hate than I did when you...
Well, but Jag, was the host was the guest remotely connected to the host?
No, they were both in the same room together. She wanted that in-person feel for the podcast, which I totally get. But they actually recorded. They had microphones and 2 cameras. I think they were independently connected to Riverside, and so I had a feed from both. Although the feed, to get even more in the details, a couple times the audio was on the opposite track. So I and some bleed and things like that. So please make sure the studio is set up well if you're going to use it.
Yeah, I had one where a client sent me someone they recorded a studio in LA, and the microphones were on the table, and the 2 of them were like in comfy chairs, leaning back, almost nowhere near the table. They weren't. You could barely hear them over the microphones. It was like, wasn't there someone there that told you to talk into the microphones? It's like, oh no, they just.
Side note: anytime I've done some live podcast recordings for folks, and I learned very quickly, microphone on a stand is no good for your average person. Just put it on a cord and have them hold it. Otherwise, you're going to get this, and it's not going to sound great.
Mhm.
Yep.
And don't let them sit in chairs with wheels. Because when they have wheels, then I've experienced that so many times where they just
Retreat. Yeah.
Johnny's the Homer fading into the bushes meme all of a sudden.
But when we swapped out chairs with wheels with static chairs, the problem went away immediately because you can't physically pick up the chair and move it back.
But what about our rocking back and forth, our dramatic
Stiff
kind of
chairs,
thing.
comfy stiff chairs. They don't lean back. They don't do
With
anything.
seat belts.
Yeah.
Well, that's why I recommend people. Some people come into my studio and they're like, "Do we have to wear the headphones?" And I'm like, "You don't have to, but let me explain why I recommend them." And then sometimes they're like, "Oh, I still don't want them." But I mean, we're all podcast people, so if I start talking like this, I notice right away. Oh my God, what? I shifted away from the microphone because I can hear myself. But different strokes.
David, you didn't use Jag's line.
What's that?
If Tay can wear headphones on a podcast, you can too.
That's right. Jag, where were you? Come on.
Should have me on speed dial, Dave.
I think, by the way, but a nice shout out to the Blue Yeti, Jag. I think we
I
have
have
to.
one behind me for ha-has.
I've got one over there too.
We have to work in a Blue Yeti reference in every episode.
We have to reference Dave's podcast top 10s, and we have
and how much we dislike the Blue Yeti.
Their intern that they hired to scour the internet for Blue Yeti hate is just seething right now.
I actually
We're
had this.
keeping them in business.
I had this happen with a client last week. I called and I said, "Well, what's different with your recording? What's going on?" And oh no, everything's the same. Everything's the same. I said, "Well, what's the microphone?" And she showed it to me, and then she saw my face die inside. It was a Blue Yeti, and there was plosives all over the audio and echo in the room, and
Talking into the wrong side.
That's a big one right there.
Yep.
For if anyone's watching this podcast or listening for the first time, we're not mic snobs, but this is how you become a true podcaster when you mock the Blue Yeti, because you've graduated from the Blue Yeti.
Well, let's punch in the other direction too. One of the things that really gets
Grind
me
your
going
gears.
about one of the things that really makes me mad about the MV7 is that touch bar right here. I don't have one on this one.
Oh,
I
had a
cannot tell
client
you
that
how many
almost
times
died over this.
I cannot tell you how many times I jump on to do an audio check before a recording, and this is what I see from the guest.
Well, because there's a button that automatically mutes it. Is that what?
It's a touch bar right here on the lip. And if you pick up your mic and move it like this to readjust it, it turns red and it's muted the microphone.
Oh
You can't see it. You have to be looking right at it like this. And I swear it happens like 7 times a month.
That's something to keep in mind, by the way, because we're going to pivot to this one, which is what should the budget of a podcast look like if you're starting out by yourself? David asked this one. He genuinely doesn't know the answer to it.
Well, I might not, but I'll volunteer to go first really quick.
Sure.
I mean, if the maybe overarching lesson you should take away if you're starting your own podcast and you're thinking about a budget is it's probably more work than you think, especially to maintain a consistent podcast on a regular basis, which is critical for success. So just for if you're thinking of going like completely DIY route, you're still going to want to spend a few $100 for, you can get a good mic for less than $100. I learned that from Jag and Johnny, their voluminous list of equipment, which we can share. But then at some point, you're probably going to want what do we call the mini mixing boards? Some sort of device. A
USB audio interface.
USB audio.
Focusrite.
Yes. So if you want to do a podcast right, microphone is probably absolutely tops. And listen, you're going to end up spending probably in ballpark of $300 on equipment up front, and then hosting fees and other fees for things you might use to support the podcast. You can get that for $30 a month or less. And so that's that. But I'm curious to hear what others think. If you go the route of hiring one of us, it can cost you anywhere from $250 to $750 an episode, depending upon length, complexity, whether you're doing audio and video and things like that. But I'll shut up. Looks like
White glove treatment. I did a podcast presentation a few months ago, and I called it "How to Start a Podcast for Under $100."
Oh, nice.
And it was, you get that Samsung Q2U microphone, which depending on the day of the week and the hour and minute of the day, could be $50, it could be $70. It kind of bounces around on Amazon. If you use the headphones that you get for free on a Delta flight or that come with your smartphone, you don't have to pay. I mean, you can spend $100 to wear the headphones that we're all wearing on this podcast. But if you're doing on a budget, $60-$70 for the mic, nothing for the headphones or dollar store headphones or dollar.
Everyone owns headphones. It can be Bluetooth. They can be plug-in.
Yeah, ideally not Bluetooth, but anything.
Well, if you're doing remote.
Yeah. But anyway, you got headphones for free. You got a microphone for $60. Your podcast host will probably be $15 a month. And then if you need either remote recording software or, and you do all the math, and you come out to roughly $100 a month, not adjusted for inflation.
I would put the podcast hosting at $0. There's a number of places that offer free podcast hosting, including RSS.com. And as well, what used to be known as Anchor, which is now Spotify for podcasters. I know with some of these free hosts, they'll only give you about 6 or 7 episodes. That's fine. Once you hit 6, you're in it to win it at that point. Yeah. You can then move over to a paid service.
Jumping into my gearhead corner. So Mac said the Scarlett Focusrite is a great option. There is a less expensive option. I would say it's within, $5 to $10. But I recently just set up one of the guys I work with it's called a Motu, MOTU M2 USB-C audio interface. It's $200 on Sweetwater. It is a wonderful piece of equipment. Plugs your XLR right into it. Back end plugs USB-C into your computer. You have excellent sounding audio. I think what all of this comes down to is, if you're going to shell out on anything, even if you're doing like the super reduced budget for your podcast, the thing that you need to spend the most on is your microphone. That is the high ticket item, whether it's $70, whether it's $400, whether it's $50. The audio is critical, because that is the thing. That is the way you're getting your message from me to you. And that has to be the best thing.
Sorry, you go, Matt.
Everybody mention one budget-friendly microphone now that they would recommend to somebody. You only get to pick one.
Q2U.
I gotta look it up.
Samsung Q2U.
Samsung Q2U is the one that Jag turned me on to, and I still buy it for all my clients. I do it as like a welcome gift because it's affordable. It's typically $70, or if it's on sale, it could be as low as $50. But Jag, you had a different one that you like, Audio Technica.
It has been discontinued.
Really? Okay. All right.
The HCR 2100's done.
Yeah, but you can still find them used. They're pretty common. I'm going to say the Rode Pod mic, $100, very solid mic.
Is that the one you're on now, Catherine?
It is the one I'm on right now.
It looks fantastic.
Thanks.
And it sounds fantastic.
And to be clear, the Focusrite thing that we're talking about, you can probably get away without that if you're the only. If you're
get away without it.
If you're the only one talking to your computer, but if you're doing it with a co-host, if you're going to do it with a co-host that's in the same room as you, you will drive yourself nuts trying to do it without.
Yeah.
You need an audio interface. You need audio interface if you have two or more microphones. You need an audio interface if you have an XLR three pin mic that you need to go between that and into a computer.
Right.
I have a microphone for $45 on Amazon that I like the sound of. It's called the Fifine, Fifine. It is a USB and XLR dynamic microphone. I recommended it to many people. It sounds great. And the way that it differentiates, I think, in a more positive way than the Q2U is it is not a handheld mic. It has one of those little stands built into it. But Johnny, then it's sitting on my desk 7 feet away from my face. You've got 25 books that you haven't read in 15 years. Stack 4 of them up on your desk. Set that microphone right there. Boom, it's right in front of your face. And now you're saving yourself $60 on getting a microphone arm.
Catherine, is the pod mic XLR, US or USB or XLR?
Well, I'm using a Focusrite right now, so let me look.
I just wonder.
Just XLR. I think they have one. I think Rode has.
They do have one.
This is just
Do they
XLR.
have Rode have one? Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
I haven't tried this one out yet, but somebody recommended this one to me. So it's I don't even know how to pronounce that.
Mauno.
Mauno. It's a PD300X dynamic microphone. It's got XLR and USB capabilities, and I will be trying that out in the next little while. And it's
$129 on Amazon.
Can you please put it back on the screen, Matt?
Sorry about that.
That's all right. Just for a couple minutes. Okay. Thank you.
You can get the 200 wireless podcast.
No
For
wireless.
$99.
No.
But then
Jag and Matt have put their feet down. You
Anything that
Sorry.
connects wireless or Bluetooth gives you one more fail point and also a tiny fraction of a second delay in the headphones or the microphone, which on a conversation, particularly virtually, can mess your world up.
Big mistake. Do not do that. No wireless anything. Plug in.
Other things would be video. Video is a huge. It's just part of the conversation now. We have to talk about video. Majority of people listening to this probably have an iPhone, probably have a MacBook. You can use your iPhone as a wireless webcam. It looks great.
The continuity camera feature next.
It's called continuity camera. Should be it's much more streamlined now that it's a more popular thing. Should be very easy to set up. Just get a little camera mount, lean it up against one of those books again that you haven't read, and then you got your video. Lights, use the lamp. I'm using a household lamp right now. Put it behind the camera. Boom, you've got good. You've got passable lighting.
We're coming up on time. I only have one more question. I think that's kicking around out there, and that's what podcast awards are worth submitting to.
I also another question I don't know the answer to that I submitted.
There is one. There is one that's worth submitting to.
Tell me.
Do tell.
It's the award that you give yourself that you have done your podcast again and again and again because you don't feel like doing it, but you know it's the right thing to do.
It comes in the form of a gold star, and you go pick it up at your local mall.
Yeah.
What's a mall?
Or one of those trophies that they used to make, that they used to give kids for sports.
Participation trophies.
Yeah.
But
Did you get any of those, Johnny?
No, I was an elite athlete. So
okay.
first, second place,
At least they told him he was.
This is the first place one. Here you go.
Do I take it that the Super Friends agree that submitting to a podcast award that can cost the major ones anywhere from $300 to $800 with no guarantee that you're going to win or get nominated is a waste of time? That was a run-on sentence.
So I'll say yes to what you just said, but I will also say that the late Todd Cochran had an award show, and he wouldn't charge very much at all. It was like $25, and it was really just admin numbers, and he was quite upfront about it. I always thought that was worth entering, just to have one. The other one I would suggest, and this is Canadian only, is the Canadian Podcast Awards. Those are free.
I got burned submitting to the Signal Awards and was out a couple $100 and never again.
Yeah, so that's one of them that I'm constantly getting peppered with notices for the Signal Awards. And I mean, listen, we could have someone on the Signal Awards come on here and defend themselves, but to submit $285 and then just
never hear anything again.
And that's not unique to our industry. A lot of industries are pay to play for these awards, but I just don't see the value in it. I think we all agree on that. Catherine?
So I'm going to be slightly contrarian to the rest of the Podcast Super Friends. I think like with many things in podcasting, it comes down to a marketing proposition. So if you're going to spend $300, there are some awards that you, just by paying that entry fee, you are going to get some kind of recognition. If you do that, then you need to take that and run with it and squeeze all the marketing juice out of it that you can. I've made this suggestion to some of my clients. We are now forever an award nominated podcast that with some people is a cachet, or it is just a credentialing. It is just something that sets you apart from other people. I don't necessarily think that there's anything wrong with that, but you need to know that going into it. You need to be willing to run the distance with it, and really just make the marketing, get everything you want out of that marketing. Look at it as a marketing opportunity and get everything you can out of that marketing opportunity.
It could be a personal resume thing too. Like I won't give away the name of the award or the host just for privacy reasons, but one of the people that I work with, they won an award for their podcast hosting, not necessarily the show itself, but the work that they were doing in their industry was recognized elsewhere by it. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a podcast award, but maybe it's similar to like the conference thing that we've talked about before. Like, do you need to go to a podcast conference or do you need to go to a social media conference? Like, is there something around there? And again, it's like you said, Catherine, it's all credentialing, it's marketing, it's credibility. There's a lot of reasons to do it. I don't know that I would, clear out your bank account just so that you can put 3 or 4 badges on your podcast website.
Badges. We don't need us thinking badges.
It's funny you mentioned that, Johnny, because the question we are not going to deal with today is what conferences are worth attending. So, there.
Great.
We'll get to that in a future episode.
Matt, I'll see you in London next year.
I'll be there next year.
We are going to New York, aren't we? When is that?
Oh, well, I actually
That's
had
an offline conversation, Dave.
All right.
Yeah.
I had, by the way, I do keep a running list of events, and they are running across the bottom of the screen. For those who are listening, we'll put if you're listening, just go find them on YouTube. It's all crawling across the bottom. Just go to podnews.net/events. I ripped half of them off from there.
We'll see you in New Zealand, right, Matt?
That's right. I will be, by the way, at the Soundwave Summit, which is going to be this weekend in Toronto. So, and next time we get together, I'll report back on that.
It seems like Canada has a freaking podcasting conference every day.
UDA.
Well, there's 3 of them that are listed up here. There's one in Calgary in October. There's one in Halifax. I found out that's going to be in June. Halifax is beautiful for anybody who wants to come. It's a beautiful city. And there's the one this weekend in Toronto at the Soundwave Summit.
Pitter patter.
Yep. I guess that's it for us. Let's go around and say goodbye. We will start this time in Detroit.
John Gay, Jag Podcast Productions from lovely Berkeley, Michigan. Thanks for joining us today.
David Yaz, pod617.com, the Boston Podcast Network. In Pod We Trust.
This was a lot of fun, everybody. Thank you. My name is Catherine O'Brien, Baton Rouge, Louisiana.
Thanks for listening. Please follow the show.
Matt Kundle from the Sound Off Media Company, located somewhere in the annals of Canada, Saint Adele, Quebec, where right now it's decided to, we're having a storm come in. Okay, that's great.
Thanks for watching the Podcast Super Friends. For more Super Friend wisdom, check out the show at soundoff.network. Produced and distributed by the Sound Off Media Company.